I grew up in Placer County on the Bear River. Fortunately, my family home is downstream of Combi Reservoir, so it would not be inundated. So I think I would be losing less than many of the people in this room if this dam were constructed. However, areas of the river that would be flooded have deep, deep meaning for me. It's where I grew up on that river, with my brother, with my friends. And those are things that can't be replaced. You can't mitigate away those memories and that real value there. That's one thing I wanted to say. The other thing that I wanted to say is it's partly a comment to NID, and it's partly addressed to everybody in the audience, is we have been hearing a lot of language like when this dam is built, when we issue a statement of overriding considerations for this dam. And the mere fact that we're here today in a CEQA process means that that's not the right words. Those are not the right words. It's if this dam is built, this land would be flooded. CEQA only applies to discretionary actions. There are lots of agencies, federal agencies, there's NID itself. They have choices in this matter. And filling rooms like these and expressing our concerns is going to be the only way that they make those correct decisions. So I hope to see a lot of you in the future.
Thank you. A resident of Placer County, and on behalf of the citizens of Colfax and Meadow Vista, we'd like to request a scoping meeting on our side of the river that we can get to easily. I'm a resident of Colfax who lives down Milk Branch Road close to the Bear River. My neighbors and I will be directly impacted by Parker Dam and Centennial Reservoir. When this dam was originally proposed in 1925, there were not two other dams on the same river above and below the proposed site. If this project were to go through, there would be no river left, only a string of water storage facilities. My concern is the cumulative impacts on the landscape for 3 reservoirs in a single drainage channel with no river in between. Right now, we have a rich diversity of local wildlife that migrates through our neighborhood, including turkeys, deer, foxes, skunks, cougars, bear, bobcats, small mammals, and a vast population of beautiful wild birds. How will removing habitat from the local wildlife protect it? My concern is loss of suitable wildlife habitat and loss of connectivity for critical wildlife habitat. I walk my dog down at the Bear River a few times a week. There is a nice campground, the Bear River Campground, along the river that is fully occupied from opening season to winter when the county closes it by blocking the sites with large rocks. People love that place. There is public river access with a parking lot and toilets connected to a group campsite that is also full all season long. I see families enjoying the river, kids tubing in the water, and always hikers, bikers, and dog walkers. And it is free. The American River on the other side of the freeway costs $10 just to park along the road. Bear River Public Access and Campgrounds is a key recreational site for the local Placer County residents. If this dam goes through, the people on my side of the river will lose all of this and have only a dead-end road that stops where the canal goes across on both Milk Branch and Plumtree. Another large group of river users enjoy standing in the river all day and canning for gold. This goes on all year long. There is a shop in town that sells all the supplies and tools that these people use. Other stores that sell food and camping supplies, as well as restaurants and most of the businesses in town, benefit greatly from the Bear River attracting people to this area. The economy of our town is largely dependent on the Bear River. I am part of a Washoe and Miwok family indigenous to this area. I visit the river to gather some of the materials I use for ceremony and prayer, and some of my prayers are said at the river. The animals and plants along the river deserve to have voices as well as the people. It is a sacred community full of individuals living their lives in an ecosystem that does not exist alongside a reservoir. The elderberries, the mock orange, willow, pearly whites, globe lilies, tiger lilies, bay laurel, big leaf maple, buckeye, red blood, ancient canyon oaks, Giant Doug fir trees create a sacred place that is far more valuable than what you propose. Please put your facility someplace else. The people who will get water from this dam are not the ones who will be impacted by it. In fact, the future need for this water has not been established, and less expensive alternatives, such as silt removal from existing reservoirs and canal leakage, have not been investigated. Unlimited and unrestrained growth is not the goal of the communities here in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Most people move up here to get away from the rat race. Making our community a water storage facility for the cities is an insult to the local population and a travesty against the beauty that we come here to enjoy. In conclusion, I would urge you to realize that this idea from 1925 belongs in the past where it should stay. It is not the right project for our modern society and way of life that seeks to live in harmony with nature and people who respect living ecosystems.
Okay. Next speaker.
I've been a Placer County resident since 1949, for the last over 40 years in the Clipper Gap area. I know a bit about what boards, special districts should do, and I know a bit about recreation by virtue of having served 2 terms as an elected board member of the Auburn Recreation District. I will have extensive comments on that. Right now, I am calling your process into question, just like Otis did. I had no idea where this place was. Did Gail Russell, did you get here? No. I saw Gail Russell driving around. It says Forest Lake Christian School way over there. So at least one person who also grew up in the Auburn area could not find this place. The absolute contempt you are showing for the residents of Placer County by not even having a meeting in Placer County is calling your questionable outreach. It is bogus. You don't care about us because we don't even vote in your district, because we don't. But yet Placer County will have most of the negative effects.
Thank you. So good evening, my name is Caleb Dardick. I'm the Executive Director of CIRCLE, the South Yuba River Citizens League. CIRCLE's mission is to protect the Yuba, which we've been doing for over 30 years now. And CIRCLE is very concerned about the Centennial Dam proposal. We have many questions about its potential negative impacts on the Yuba River. As you probably know, half of the South and Middle Yuba River water already gets diverted to the Bear River, and Centennial could demand more. If you think about a dam that may not be full all the time, there might be a call to keep it filled. Where will that water come from? So we are hoping the EIR will tell us much more about to what extent you're relying on the Yuba and existing water to fill this dam. NID talks about this project addressing drought and climate change. In order to really understand the purpose and need for this project, we need a thorough study of the latest climate change science, including projected impacts on the Yuba and Bear watersheds. There's so much we don't know about what's coming. A very important part of this process is making sure NID studies alternatives to this dam and reservoir, as the last speaker said. What is the full range of alternative means by which NID could respond to the effects of climate change and drought instead of building this dam? We'd like to know to what extent NID needs could be met through water conservation and supporting efforts to restore headwater forests and meadows, which we know are a great way, environmental way, to hold water. CIRCLE's position is that in a time of record drought and climate change, we need creative solutions to address our local water needs. And we want to know if there are better ways for NID to meet its future water needs rather than construct a big, new, expensive dam. We're also really concerned about NID's approach to buying up BLM land and by going around the local BLM office to acquire this land. This looks like an end run to avoid federal protections for the environment that have been hard won by our community over the years. The EIR should address how the loss of federal protections will be honored or respected by NID in future agreements. I do want to thank NID for extending the comment period and for doing such a great job in getting people out, and encourage all of you here to fully participate. If you don't speak tonight, please submit written comments. And we have provided, I only made 50 copies, we passed them out. We have information on how to write effective comment letters, suggested things you could write about at our website, yubarriver.org/Centennial Dam. Encourage you to use that reference and to also let other people. 150 people are willing to come out. I imagine there's 10 times as many who care but couldn't get out tonight for childcare or other reasons. Please reach out to them. And of course, Circle will be submitting extensive comments on this, and appreciate the extra time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I live in one of the houses that's going to be inundated. This is very uncomfortable, by the way. There's been a lot of things said about this dam, but the truth is when we lose this canyon, we're not going to get it back. And I've lived there 25 years, and we're going to have one dam after another dam after another dam, and it's just going to be gone. And I see that there's lots and lots of canyons throughout the Sierras that won't impact us in this way and cut us off from the access that we have right now. I've lived there so many years and have enjoyed the wildlife and the scenic values in this canyon, and I mean there's other aspects of it. I'm not a great speaker like some of these guys seem to be, but it is affecting me, and in fact it's already affecting me, because every decision now I make is based on possibly losing the home I've invested in for 25 years. And I've actually reached out to NID several times to try to work out a solution so I come out of this hole if possible. And I've got very limited response back. And I think that's kind of, it's making me very uneasy. I seem to be the little guy, and they seem to be doing their thing and not really responding to my requests. So anyways, I know we need water for the future, and I know that we need to grow and do things, but we also need to look at where we grow and how we grow and how we treat the people that we come across. And I know that there's the good of the many, and I'm just a few, I'm just a little guy. But, I think that the little guys, need a little bit of time too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. I am a river scientist with Circle, and I will be contributing to written comments as part of a lot of people under the umbrella of the Foothill Water Network. So I'll keep my comments to what I think are just a couple of thoughts I can't resist to share, and hopefully add some unique value to, or additional value to, some of the really thoughtful and inspiring comments we've already heard, starting with Ms. Suarez. The Bear River deserves to be fully cared for and analyze the environmental impacts of inundating 6 miles of what is a valuable river ecosystem. But I do want to speak to, well, first of all, this is the thought, that the environment is not a customer of NIDs or any corporation or any agency or any organization or any people. The environment is the context for everything we value, right? Health, economy, beauty. So let's remember that as we go through this environmental review process and engage in this process. I have been working for 7 years with many other people, including NID and many of their wonderful staff, on an environmental process of relicensing the existing dams that NID owns and their diversions and their hydroelectric facilities as regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And so much care has gone into actually restoring the sections of the Yuba River that are so heavily diverted by those facilities. And so much care into thinking about the water is precious and it's valuable. So how much water is released, what time of year, it all makes a difference. And we are expecting to see some really significant restoration and improvement of our beloved stretches of the Yuba River, Canyon Creek, the Middle Yuba River, the South Yuba River, as a result of that whole process that's been going on and not yet complete. So it's very important to understand how this additional storage facility on the Bear River might impact those gains or improvements to the Yuba River that are not yet secured, but we're anxiously awaiting. So certainly expect that to be part of the EIR. The other thought I wanted to share is that the water that washes over the existing dams in the Bear River and flows out towards Sacramento is not wasted water. This time of year, especially, the biggest environmental problem in California, in my opinion, and many others, is our ailing Sacramento River Delta ecosystem. And it is water at this time of year and on later into the spring that is desperately needed. Every acre foot of extra water, freshwater inflow to the Delta, is the most important thing to restore that ecosystem. So that needs to be part of the EIR too, in terms of what is the lost environmental benefits downstream. And as far as there were some comments earlier about groundwater, the entire groundwater capacity of the Central Valley exceeds all the dams in California in terms of storage capacity. And as most of you know, our groundwater aquifers in the Central Valley are depleted, and it's a huge problem of how we're going to replenish those groundwater reserves. So when we're talking about storing any amount, and I think it's really only in a few of the years, any amount of storage could be achieved by this dam, that is taking away, in some respects, from opportunities for recharge of that natural groundwater downstream. So those downstream effects need to be very carefully looked at as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I live on Milk Ranch Road, right at the edge of the proposed reservoir. I served from 1987 to 2008 as the elected director of the Placer County Water Agency. Yeah, okay. Living on the river and knowing something about water, I don't think there's a whole lot of water going down the Bear River, so I took a real good look at that. I went to the reservoir down below Camp Far West and said, how much water is spilling over Camp Far West? So there's a case study, and you find out that 7 of the last 9 years, virtually no water spilled over Camp Far West, which effectively means that there's enough water in the Bear River for 1 dam and not 2. NID is very confident in its presentations that their water rights trump the water rights of South Sutter Water District. And that may be true. But to the degree that Camp Far West is drawn down by water diverted upstream by NID, to that degree, the groundwater basin in western Placer County is going to be overdrafted. And the way that works is before Camp Far West, the western Placer groundwater basin was dropping 1 to 3 feet per year until it was over 60 feet depleted. And basically, the state of California and the regional entities got together, built Camp Far West to supply the rice farmers with a cheap supply of surface water so they could get off of groundwater. If you divert water above Camp Far West, the farmers do not go out of business. They simply turn on the pumps that were there before Camp Far West, and they're ready to be turned on again if Nevada Irrigation District fills its reservoir and prevents South Sutter from filling theirs. Now, I suppose it's some kind of an odd measure of wealth in the United States that we could actually build 2 dams and have only enough water to fill one. So I suppose that's some kind of an odd testament to our abundance. But basically, this is all in the Western Groundwater Management Plan, which was completed in 2007 by Placer County Water Agency, details this particular problem. So just repeating again, to the degree, gallon for gallon almost, if you take water out of Camp Far West, it will be pumped out of the ground and you will be overdrafting the groundwater basin under the cities of Lincoln, Roseville. Now, I would be willing to bet that this NOP was not circulated to anyone in western Placer County, much less the cities of Roseville, PCWA, the city of Lincoln, and the California American Water Company, much less every single landowner and farmer out there that owns a well, who is threatened by overdraft and groundwater depletion. So this is a very serious impact on western Placer, has not been mentioned. The gentleman I heard last night who said the Roseville is replenishing the groundwater, they in fact do. They take shoulder water from their treatment plant and inject it into the ground. They're putting treated water into the ground. If this dam happens, South Sutter, Camp Far West dries up, there is going to be a huge sucking sound and enormous impacts to western Placer. So I think that this needs to be addressed. As a matter of fact, I think it's such a failing of this particular process that that whole series of stakeholders neither was circulated the NOP, nor were they provided an opportunity to have a public hearing in their area to talk specifically about this problem. So just a little piece on this. If there's not enough water to fill one reservoir and you're going to build 2, somebody's going to be real low. If it's the reservoir up here, Centennial, I'm going to be living next to an open pit mine. It's going to be empty. Every year, 100,000 acre feet of water in that reservoir would draw down 120 feet. If you've seen Rolling down 8 or 10 feet, you know that it's not a pretty picture. Have you ever seen a reservoir down 120 feet? Take a look at Oroville in the fall of 2015. Take a look at the Stanislaus. You'll get some pictures of that. By all means, take a look at this stuff. This is a very serious proposal, has impacts far and wide. I'll leave these 2 elements where in the groundwater management plan, you will get a picture of the major stakeholders, but every well owner is a stakeholder, deserves to be informed, deserves to feedback.
Thank you.
I've been a resident generally in the area for about 40 years, in the same place for 33 years or longer. I've used all these areas for recreation and just generally seen it. I've also, there's some of the experts here that spoke already about the drawdown of the water. I've driven across Comby Lake when it was just a mud pit. And that's exactly what's going to happen with all this. There's just not enough water to supply all of these reservoirs. If the water's down, it's down. You can't just keep putting little drops here and there and expect it to supply all these different areas. It just seems to me that NID just wants to sell water downstream. I don't really think it's going to benefit anything. I think it's going to do a lot of destruction, and like some of the experts said, there's just going to be a mud pit. Rollins Lake has been really low. If you can't keep that full, how are you going to keep this one full? It's just another senseless project. There's also the conservation measures. We talk about them, but yet we have a lot of high-end homes that go in with a lot of high-end landscaping that takes a lot of water. We put in a lot of golf courses that use huge amounts of water, and what, just to knock a little ball around? I think that's where we need to cut the water usage, not to be putting in more reservoirs that supply that kind of usage. So it's a really bad idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
30-year resident of South Nevada County. Several points I'd like to emphasize. Some of these have been covered in another way by other people, but what really strikes me, what NID is doing here is almost, you could call it cart before the horse. We don't have our water rights nailed down. We haven't studied alternatives, and yet we have already spent and are committing hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't understand this. I think there ought to be a pause, and a lot of the questions that are being asked tonight need to have answers. They need to have answers before the formal EIR project or study really gets going. Now, as far as study alternatives, it is the usual practice in doing EIRs that you study alternatives in addition to what you start out with as a desired project. And what we haven't heard about, either in the presentations or otherwise, is increasing the capacity of the existing reservoirs, either by dredging or by raising the dam, improving the water retention and slow release of the forest headwaters and mountain meadows. There's a dramatic demonstration that has occurred in the last 5 years. It's not in the NID district, it's in another water district, but my wife and I go up there and check on it a couple times every year, and it's amazing what has been done for not a whole lot of money to get a meadow working again like it ought to, and it builds up and stores water and does a slow release over the summer. Now, funding. Obviously, you can tell I'm concerned about that. In the literature that NID has put out, they talk $300 million to build Centennial Dam. It'll probably be more than that. Most public projects are. Now, I remember in living here for 30 years, for most of those 30 years, I always had an NID tax on my property tax bill. And yet I had no access to any benefit that NID might provide, okay? No water, whatever. So one of my questions is, if the Centennial Dam goes forward, I think the EIR clearly ought to look at how do some of the people in Nevada County who've been paying off the past bond measures and will likely be hit again for this one, how do they individually benefit by getting access to water that they've been wanting for years and years and years? Now, a comment on communications. I think it was about 8 months ago, my wife and I spent an evening when Nick Wilcox, one of the board members, made a presentation about what they were thinking on this and what they wanted to do. And at that point in time, we were invited to sign up, and we'd be on the list where we'd get regular communications for new information on this project. I got my first one in 8 months about 3 weeks ago, and it was the announcement of this meeting. So F for communications on that count. Second thing is I spent several hours today on the NID website trying to find out more of the details on this, and so help me, there is not enough information, not enough specifics at all at this point in time to be even starting the EIR, because we don't even know some of the questions we ought to be asking, including in the scope of an EIR. So I think the whole process needs to be slowed down. More information needs to be given to the public.
Thank you.
I am a 20-year resident of Meadow Vista. I've been a property owner in Placer County for 30 years. I've been a private businessman in Placer County for 40 years. My family has been in the west slope of California since the 60s, the 1860s, as someone mentioned at last night's meeting. And by the way, how many folks were at the meeting last night? Great. There's some things that I want to share that were passed on. I have a fisheries degree from Humboldt State University. As I mentioned, I am a private businessman. I appreciate the need we have to continue to develop resources for our economy. However, I do believe that surface impoundments are a 19th century solution to a 21st century problem. I do have a few questions for the district, some things that were brought up last night. I would like to know what percent of NID's total captured water is actually consumed by the folks within the Nevada Irrigation District. It was stated at the beginning of this presentation that NID is operated by and for the landowners. And I would hope that the motivations and the consumption that are intended for this reservoir are directed for that purpose. I would like to know to what extent this project is envisioned by, supported, and perhaps funded by downstream interests. To what extent are the waters that would be captured by the surface impoundment going to be used in areas far removed from our locale? Also, I don't understand the statement that environmental releases almost equal treated water releases. This was shared last night. And when I look at the flows in the ancestral river channel as compared to the amount of water that's flowing down the Bear River Canal, I see a gross inequity. So I would have to assume that those environmental discharges are intended for uses far downstream. Now the district claims a right of priority dating back to 1927. And it is on that basis that this project is being forwarded. It was mentioned in last night's meeting that at the time that project was first proposed, there was no Rollins Reservoir, there was no Combie Reservoir. And if that in fact is true, we have to consider that creating this reservoir today is asking to do something to this stream that is very different from the circumstances that existed in 1927. I do believe that an alternative technology or system of water retention that is not fully considered here is recharging our aquifers. And at last night's meeting we had a Mr. Binner, B-I-N-N-E-R, who was a, I believe, Class 3 water operator from the Roseville Water District, perhaps retired and so feels comfortable speaking openly, who stated that in Roseville they are recharging the aquifers there. And we have significantly drawn down the water table throughout the Central Valley Basin, and we have to consider the significant loss of water due to evaporation when we utilize surface impoundment. Last of all, one aspect of this project that I fear will not be seriously considered, because as I watched the FERC relicensing of the Bear Yuba project last year, the whole issue of considering restoration of our anadromous fisheries, the salmonids, steelhead, was mentioned on a cursory basis, but it's very clear that neither NID nor any of the large power operators on the West Slope really have any desire or concern about recreating what has been an ancestral and huge environmental aspect of the Central Valley ecosystem. And when you consider that for millennia, Mother Nature has delivered back to terrestrial ecosystems tens of thousands of tons of nutrients via the transmission of expiring fish, and we have completely deprived our current ecosystems of what has been traditionally and ancestrally correct. I think that's sad. think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'm concerned about transportation in the area with cutting off Dogbar Road, and I don't see where you're going to mitigate it. Where's the access? Where's the bridge? What are you going to do to alleviate the traffic problems? And Alta Sierra relies on the Dogbar corridor for a fire escape. That's been the big controversy in the Lone Star and Sunshine Valley and Alta Sierra, and you're cutting off a roadway out of there. I see nothing on the maps or anything talking about what we're going to do with traffic in the area. I'm also very concerned with the recreational loss in the area. I think it's and NID in the past has taken and made this nice reservoir at Rollins Lake and Scott's Flat Lake, and they charge you to go in and use the water. Today you can go to the Bear River and recreate, whether it's kayaking or gold panning or tubing. My kid's been tubing down there for 30 years. And we park for free and we use the river for free. But what are you going to do when you build another lake? Are you going to charge us to go in like you charge us to go into Rollins Lake? We lose that as well as the habitat. But my biggest concern is the traffic flow there, and I think you must build a bridge. You have to. You're cutting off Colfax. The sports teams from Bear River and Colfax are constantly traveling the Dogbar Road to get back and forth. And you're more than triple their trip to get to the schools now. So I think that's something you have to look at.
I'm a resident of Nevada County, property owner along the Dogbar corridor. I'm about 2.5 miles up from the Bear River, and I use the Dogbar Bridge daily for commuting. A number of people here tonight have expressed concern regarding traffic and traffic mitigation. I think it's a real serious issue, and all the research that I've done on all the NID websites and all the links and all the documents that I've ever been able to find, Marie, I've seen nothing that talks about real solutions to traffic mitigation. On one hand, it's a convenience issue, but on another, it's a real life safety issue. I've had 3 fires within about a mile of my house in the last 2 years, and that's my exit, that's my path out. So what do? Wildfires coming up, I drive over Mount Olive, drive into the fire to go to Grass Valley. How does this get handled?
I'd like to say that David's is it David? Yes, you said it all. I mean, that's incredible. I'm a fisher person. I go to Fort Bragg and fish, and I've seen the fish dwindle. There's no salmon. There's none. You can boat all day with about 30 to 60 fishermen out there, and 2 fish were caught all week. And the surf fish that's not there, used to be able to get buckets of that with nets. There's no fish. And so what I'm saying, in the 20th century, we should be tearing down the dams because they're not working. The food chain isn't doing us any good, and they are already tearing down some dams, and we're going to build one for, like he said, homes, golf courses. The golf courses in Grass Valley, it was pointed out, they don't use reclaimed, what do you call it? Sewer water, whatever it is. You know, that stuff that goes down into the ground at my house. I do live on the Bear River. I have 10 acres. I'm between the day use and the campground, the night use. I can see the gravel bar. First I was for the lake, but too many people are being displaced. You've got to listen to the people. It's the people's river. There's a lot of wildlife there. There's the new one that we just recently found, just in a couple years, was the ringtail cat. Not very many people know about it, but the ringtail cat's very adorable, and the miners used them in their in the mines for whatever. They were their pets, I think. I have a couple running around my place, and some neighbors in Placer County have some in their yard, just up from the river and stuff. So there's a lot of wildlife, otters, of course the deer. I don't have a rose garden because anything I plant outside has to be covered. I don't have fences to block anything except for around my little garden. The other thing is that NID, you can't find out. I don't understand the government part of them. They're a government, they're non-government, they're a quasi agency. It seems like all their material that they are trying to provide to us, which they're not, it's not in their, their records for public knowledge. We don't know where the water's going. Personally, I think it's going down to the San Joaquin, Placer County, Sacramento Valley. I think they'll be selling the water there. I also believe that the drawdowns on the river are going to be so extreme that at some point they're going to be taking water out of the Yuba River. The Yuba River also has salmon on it, and we have issues with the Delta. The Delta ocean waters are coming up into the Delta too far, and it's wiping out a lot of land and the wildlife, everything that the ecosystem for the fisheries. So we need to not divert any water out of the Yuba River for this project to fill this lake. The drawdowns are going to be too large, and the snowpack is the snowpack. I came from Truckee. I lived there 24 years. I think I moved to Tahoe in '77. It was a drought year. It was my first year in the snow, and 3 feet was a lot of snow for me. And then 82, 1, 2, we had huge amounts of snow. It shut down the railroad. It shut down the freeways. Those years are coming back. They may not be in the next 2 or 3, but I really don't think we need more water to be diverted to some other counties that are subsidized farmers to grow, to not grow. And we have to conserve our water when we can. That's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
I've been a Nevada County resident for 27 years. I live in the Chicago Park area. I have some questions for NID and I have some comments. One question, where is the proposed water going? And I don't believe it's going for the citizens of Nevada County. It's got to be going downstream, right? And how do you propose to mitigate flooding of heritage oaks? There's a lot of heritage oaks in that corridor upstream of the proposed dam site. I don't know if people here know that 90% of NID water goes for irrigation, 10% goes for domestic use. And a lot of that irrigation water, it's not restricted on how it's used. You can run rainbirds 24 hours a day. During the day, a lot of that water transpires, goes back into the atmosphere. There's also a problem in a lot of the unlined dishes. They're not shotcreted, they're not covered, and a lot of that water transpires and goes into the ground. I really don't see the conservation measures. You mentioned conservation. I don't see that going on. I think instead of building a dam, NID needs to concentrate on conservation, not only in their dispersal methodology, but in requirements for the people that are current irrigation users, and I'm one of them. The other thing that I think everybody should be knowledgeable about is if the groundwater is going downstream in Placer County, one of the things that all the health departments are struggling with right now is there's no restriction on the number of wells that a private person can drill on their parcel. So if somebody has 10 acres, they could drill 10 wells, they could drill 20 wells. DWR does not require a mitigation on the number of those wells. That's it, that's all I have tonight.
Thank you.
You had a couple of questions for the audience, actually, if that's okay. How many people have rain barrels? I'm kind of curious. How many people let the water run? Thank you. How many people let the water run when they brush their teeth? How many people have drip irrigation? On the organization of these meetings, I don't use a computer, but I did Google how to get here tonight, so I knew how to get here. I called NID to ask them how to get here, and they gave me wrong directions on how to get here. And it was okay. I didn't correct them because I knew where I was going, but I think a lot of other people didn't. I've traveled around the world, the globe, both directions, and I consider myself kind of a desert rat. So I do enjoy the desert environment and see how desert people live as well as mountain people. And I feel like with conservation and using your resources properly, you can get away with not having a lot of resources, but living very well. I'm a little worried about a dam with earthquake situation. They keep talking about the big one. It hasn't happened yet, but eventually it will. I read a great article in the San Francisco Chronicle the other day about the Klamath Rivers and the taking down of the dams up there, and also the Carmel River and the amount it costs to restore that river and take that dam down, which was pretty extreme, and the amount of work that it took to do it. So it just seems like we're kind of going backwards by talking about putting dams up versus taking dams down. High intensity water crops down the hill, cotton, almonds, all these type of things are taking a lot of water. But I just like to say I feel very blessed to live in this country where we can have these discussions, as well as the fact that it's raining right now. I'm an ordained minister, and I consider my church to be nature. I spend a lot of time in nature every day, and I just feel like the things that we take for granted, all the animals that we don't understand their language, are not allowed to speak on this, and I think they would have something to say if they were allowed to speak on this. And one final thing, I love NID for the fact that my fondest memories of this area, my over 45 years I've lived here, were fishing in all their NID ditches and different places. And the largest trout I've ever seen taken out of anywhere in this county, actually, even out of Jackson or any of the reservoirs, was right out of the Bear River, 24 inches long, by a friend of mine. And he was pretty proud, and I was pretty proud to be his friend. Thank you.
I'm a wildlife biologist, have been for 18 years, and I work for Sierra Streams Institute. We are involved with a project with many stakeholders throughout the Bear River watershed, including private residents who live here, as well as many of the federal, state, county, and other agencies, other nonprofit organizations who care about this watershed. As part of this, we are compiling a disturbance inventory of data related to the impacts that have already occurred in this watershed, as well as developing a restoration plan for this watershed. I want to make sure that any decisions that are made or any environmental analysis that is done through the EIR are considering all of that information and all of those collaborative, consensus-based plans that are being developed by the stakeholders. I also want to make sure that everyone here knows that this is also a process that they can be involved in. So definitely come talk to me or visit our website at sierrastreams.org to get more information on that potential process. Some of our issues that we are concerned about that need to be addressed in the environmental impact report include the methylation of mercury, which was discussed by one additional person. We have an enormous amount of mercury in the system, and the areas that have the highest amounts of mercury are our existing dams, are the reservoirs at Combi and Rawlins. Also, the process with which water is moved within a reservoir actually changes the way that the mercury, which is toxic to humans as well as to wildlife. A lot of people here have been talking about the importance of water for humans. We also need to think about the health effects on humans as well. The process within which mercury is transformed into a bioavailable form in a reservoir is different from that in which it's flowing down a river. That needs to be analyzed in depth. We also need to be analyzing the downstream effects. So not only within the proposed reservoir, but also what is going to be happening with the mercury and the many other toxins such as arsenic and lead, which are coming in from some of the upstream tributaries. How are those going to be changed by the effects of the reservoir in the downstream areas as well? Methylation of mercury is an issue for restoration projects as far away as the Delta, with mercury coming down here. Endangered species such as the giant garter snake in the Sacramento Valley are being affected with their health. We have studies that demonstrate this by mercury coming down from our area, as well as the people who are living here. Sierra Streams Institute is performing a number of studies on public health relating to this. So this is just one of many areas that we are concerned about. I definitely also, as a wildlife biologist, was very surprised to see the statement on this board that said that habitat was actually going to be increased and improved for fisheries, for example. A reservoir is a warm water fishery, not a cold water fishery. The river is a cold water fishery, which has more than 1,000 native rainbow and brown trout per mile in the upper reaches of this area that is proposed to be transformed into a reservoir, which then will be a warm water fishery supporting non-native bass, which, by the way, also accumulate more mercury into the system, and then also have hydrotrophic effects on wildlife such as bald eagles, a number of other species that can eat those fish as well as the people. Also, the number of special status species, so endangered, rare, and other threatened species that were listed in the notice of preparation that was produced by NID is much smaller than the list of species that actually occur in this watershed or have potential to occur in this watershed. There are many additional species that need to be addressed. That's going to be coming in a list. Also the issue of wildlife movement corridors. If you have 6 miles of an additional dam in between the two dams, there's not going to be access for wildlife to move from one side of the river to the other. Also, in terms of land use for the people as well as wildlife movement, if you actually look at the map of the watershed and the parcels and the roads and everything that is going on with land use in the watershed, which is in the disturbance inventory that we have, you will see that in the middle elevations where this reservoir is proposed, that is the area of highest density of parcels, highest density of roads, most limits of movement for wildlife, and also the fewest opportunities for large tracts of land to be set aside as habitat mitigation and recreation mitigation. So this is something where the largest tracts in the area of the middle watershed are those along this area of the Bear River between the two existing dams. Those are opportunities that would be lost. I think it's really important that as we are evaluating mitigation options, we realistically evaluate whether sufficient mitigation opportunities exist within the watershed that would be of enough area and enough quality to actually remediate the effects of the dam. These are a few of many. The Nisinan tribes, in addition to the United Auburn Indian Community, there's the Nevada City Rancheria and the Colfax Rancheria. Those need to be consulted when you're looking at cultural resources in addition to United Auburn. There's a long history of their life here. I'll give somebody else a chance. More will be coming in written form. Thank you.
In December 2014, I attended one of the NID board meetings, and I outlined a number of concerns, things such as proper abandonment of wells so you protect groundwater. I had a whole list then, I won't go into it now, but I have a couple new issues that I'd like to just bring concern about. One, if the dog bar crossing is replaced with a crossing below the new dam, thus taking traffic through Meta Vista, because the roads actually are better from I-80 through Meta Vista and then here into Combi, as opposed to the curvy dog bar reservoir. I believe that a lot of traffic is going to use the Meta Vista route as a shortcut, and therefore there will be significant impact on downtown Meta Vista, and I hope some mitigations will be considered for that. The other item that just came to my attention, and I was not at the Meta Vista MAC meeting the other day, but it's my understanding that the Placer County supervisors are looking for a replacement for the Bear River campground, and there was discussion regarding building a park on Peaceful Valley Road, which is the road I live on. My house will be underwater, so it doesn't matter for me, but for the neighbors that will be there still. Peaceful Valley Road right now is a one-lane road, privately owned. The people that live there have to maintain it. And I would certainly hope that if a park's being put in there, that as part of this project, that NID will assume responsibility for the maintenance of the road, and that improvements would be made to make it safe for two-way traffic. If you've ever been to Hidden Falls on a Saturday, the Hidden Falls Trails on a Saturday, it's mayhem with traffic all the way from the park out to Mount Vernon Road, and the homeowners there suffer the consequences of people trespassing by their property. The other issues, back to the park on Peaceful Valley Road, the other concerns would be noise, especially if it incorporates a campground, noise for the people that live there, and how that'll be handled, and security, because if you go to the Bear River campground right now, sometimes the people living there are not the friendliest group, and I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I first want to begin with gratitude, because I am extremely grateful for everything that NID does. I spend a lot of time out of the country, and every time I come back and I'm able to drink this amazing water that you bring, I'm very, very grateful. And I can't imagine the amount of work that you must go through simply to keep the pipes running, and 490 miles of water. That must be quite an immense project. So I'm very, very grateful for everything that you do. My hair is wet right now because I went down to the Bear River, down where the Dog Bar Bridge crosses the road. I wanted to just spend a little bit of time before coming here just to have that help these words. And if anybody hasn't been there recently, I highly recommend. It's a beautiful place. If you go down to the Dog Bar Bridge, you can take that trail up the river, and it's extremely beautiful, and it's a really good reminder of just how lucky we are to live in this incredibly beautiful place. I came across something really wonderful. The mission of NID is to provide a dependable and quality water source and strive to be good stewards of the watersheds and conserve the available resources. It's really a beautiful statement, and I think that all of us can relate to that second half at least, to strive to be good stewards of the watersheds and to conserve the available resources. I did notice that nowhere in that statement does it talk about demolishing people's houses, and as far as I can tell, you are all very good people simply trying to do what's best for the community. So I can appreciate what you're doing, and I'm sure that it's not easy. I've listened to the things that people have said at these meetings, and I wanted to try to share something different. And it reminded me of an 80-year-old pilot that I met on an aerial photography expedition, and he told me this story. He said, "Jeff, for the first 30 years of my life, I worked in the Army Corps of Engineers, and my job was to take water out of the Colorado River. And it took me 30 years to realize that I was doing it wrong." And then he spent the next 30 years of his life trying to bring water back to the Colorado River because everything had been so depleted because of those actions. And he told me that he carries that guilt with him. And so I can't imagine what it must feel like to lose your home. That must be something terrible. And furthermore, I can't imagine what it feels like to force someone to lose their home. That must be a heavy burden to carry. And I would like to offer to all of you at NID, working on this project, that if you haven't seen that stretch of the Bear River, I would actually like to invite you on a rafting trip. I would love to share with all of you working on this project. My friend owns a rafting company up here. We'll bring you down. We'll do it safely. It's an extraordinary time, and I would really love for you to see that area. And likewise, if there's anyone here or who might be listening whose home is going to be lost if this dam takes place, you might consider inviting everyone on that team to come and see your home, just so that way it makes it a little bit more real, and that way you know what's at stake. I hope that each of you will go to that Dog Bar Bridge and just walk upstream and spend some time there because it's extraordinarily beautiful, especially if you're not familiar with the area, if you're coming out of Sacramento. In the words of Robert Frost, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, NID could go down this road towards this dam to demolish 25 homes of our citizens, to divide our community on a project that will have minimal gain, to worsen global climate change by the methane that will be released by the reservoir, to kill a river, one of our most cherished places that we go with our friends and family, to ruin the opportunity for our future sons and daughters to know and love this beautiful river. Or NID has the possibility to do something great for this community and to be stewards of these rivers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But the touching thing that I have gotten, and I can say many words here this evening, but I received 2 letters in the mail today from my granddaughters. They are both 8 and 10, and I would just like to quickly read to you what they had to say about this project. They are handwritten. There is no technology, no iPad, no computer, nothing. Dear NID, my name is Heidi. I am 8 years old. My grandma and grandpa live on Dog Bar Road. The Bear River goes through my grandma's backyard. The dam would destroy my happy place at her house and destroy her house. I have a lot of fun catching frogs and baby frogs. It isn't a good idea. It would be mean to destroy the nature. Please don't build a dam. Signed, Heidi Vieira. My granddaughter, who is 10. I will make it brief because she wrote a 5-page letter. Okay, my name is Samantha Vieira. I am 10. My grandma lives on Dog Bar Road. The Bear River runs through her backyard. The dam would destroy our fun with her place at her house. This place is like my heaven. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. I would go there in a second to the chance to play. You would destroy everything that she cares about, her garden, her plants, and worst of all, the wild animals like the deer, coyotes, turkeys, fish, frogs, mountain lions, and all kinds of birds. Some animals might be able to run away, but you will be wiping out their homes. There are so many memories that we have already had here at her home. She has an art room where we spend the long summer days there, painting, drawing, doing crafts that you could even think of. The next time we go there, she's going to teach me how to make jewelry. But if I'm not strong enough, I will have to wait. I will never be able to sit on the art room porch and listen to the river and watch the birds. If you decide to make these dams, some of my recent memories, you must buy my grandma a new house with a river in her backyard, a big property with a cushy home, and also make her home for the animals and not all about you or us. We will have to make fish ladders on the dam so the fish could go up and down the river. It has to have a garden area for my grandma to work. And it has to have a big house just like the one she has now. But those are if you build the dam. I hope you will not. If you do, please consider all these things, especially the houses that you will destroy, animals and the peoples. Please do not think that I am not a nice kid. All I'm trying to do is to say, please don't build the dam.
That's my mom right there. We live on the Bear River. I've loved it. It's been a home for us, and it's been a sanctuary that we are able to go, have fun, bring friends, family, and everybody else with that. And there's too much ecosystem, there's too much families, there's too many houses, and there's too many people that I've seen that have been devastated from just even the thought of this dam being made. And for how many people that can be completely ruined by this dam being made, I really believe just a little bit of water source is not even worth it when we are able just to make a water source out of all the things that we already have. So that's all.
Thank you. I'm a retired City of Roseville water distribution operator across the street. And I can just tell you from my experience that what's been said in here about groundwater recharging is a little misconceiving. Groundwater recharging has been done, I think, for quite a long time in California, a couple of decades. We started groundwater recharging in the city of Roseville because we didn't have enough storage. It's too expensive to build water storage tanks. So what we did is drill wells in the neighborhoods and pump water into the ground and store it, treated water. So you're getting rid of the mercury. You're killing two birds with one stone. And like the other gentleman said, you can store a lot more water in the aquifer than you can in any reservoir or any storage tank. Also, City of Roseville, almost all the golf courses, or all of them, are on reclaimed water. I don't know of any that's on reclaimed water in Nevada County. Almost all of the lighting and landscaping is on reclaimed water. I don't think any of it's on reclaimed water in this county. So, contrary to what the other gentleman said, we have a long way to go. Building dams is a 19th century technology. People are saying they want technology, it's already here. Groundwater recharging works. We have subsidence in the Central Valley, Southern Valley, and that's what's going to bring us back, not building dams. Thank you.
I live about a mile and a half from the Dog Bar Bridge. We bought our property 25 years ago because of the Dog Bar Bridge and easy access to I-80, and then fell in love with the river. There is not another piece of, another river like it. Folsom Dam, Shasta Dam, those lakes, when it's August and so they're downright ugly. I don't know how animals can go down those steep sides to get water. We're talking about putting a lake 250 feet deep in a fire corridor, like the crowd just said. How are these animals going to migrate across the river? One thing that nobody's addressed on the environmental impact is if you do put this lake there and you take away the Dog Bar Bridge, and people have to go to Highway 49, you're going past 3 schools. What's going to be the impact rush hour with kids coming and going on Dog Bar, at that point it would be Magnolia and Comby Road. And then onto Highway 49, rush hour with all this additional traffic. There has to be some sort of environmental impact. Thanks.
I'm a resident of Wolf Creek Road, South County, Alpha Sierra Ranches, and I would just echo the concerns Mr. Rice and our last speaker made that traffic congestion is a huge issue for all of us who live north of Magnolia Road and west of Dog Bar. If you flood Dog Bar Road and Magnolia Road, parts of it, we're cut off from timely access to both Highway 80 and the southern route out to Highway 49. And the roads inside the Alta Sierra community are not built to handle a lot of extra congestion. They're windy, they're steep. A lot of the roads don't have shoulders. So if you end up with a lot more traffic coming up through Alta Sierra to get to 49 through Lime Kiln or Alta Sierra Drive, you're going to have a real mess. And there's potential for accidents and just a lot of frustration and congestion. So we would really, really appreciate the environmental impact studies to look at traffic mitigation. Also, Mr. Rice mentioned fire evacuation. If you're cutting off extra fire evacuation routes to that area, we've already been identified as high risk for wildfires. We pay the extra Board of Equalization fee and extra fees to the fire department. So fires are a concern for us, and our evacuation routes are a concern. We've also got questions about the impact on wells. A lot of us are on well water. What happens when you put a large reservoir in? I don't know how that affects the groundwater, but I appreciate that being studied. And then, I'm not a hydrology engineer, but I have been reading that there are proposed alternatives to the dam. Some of what I've heard is optimizing existing facilities, enlarging existing facilities, or collaborating with of the existing facilities. There's another item that I read that involves optimizing the American River subbasin, groundwater in the American River subbasin, and then something to do with recharging water through the Merton Formation. And I don't know what those things are, but I'm sure you've got engineers who do. So I would ask that you please study all the alternatives very carefully before proceeding with the dam.
I'm 16 years old, and I currently reside in Nevada County. Today I want to talk about the fish. Fish ladders only work on 3% of species, and you guys aren't even planning on building one right now. And if you do, a warm water reservoir isn't going to provide these fish with the habitat that they need. I want to talk about intimate domain. I talked to... Hello? Hello? I talked to Nick Wilcox, who is the director of Nevada Irrigation District, and I asked him, why do you think intimate domain is okay? And he said, because we've been doing it for centuries, and I think that is not okay. Just because we've been oppressing people for centuries doesn't mean that we can keep doing it. This is going to destroy 6 miles of oak forest, which I am not okay with. That feels immoral to me. The mercury that is from mining is going to come up when we drain all this water down to this dam, and there's not going to be any water in between the 3 dams that we're going to have. The water that we plan on collecting is based on past precipitation measures, and we can't see the future. Like, why do you guys think that we're going to get the same precipitation we got a while ago? The methane that's going to be released from building this dam is going to make climate change worse. I talked to Circle, a person from Circle, and he told me that Nevada Irrigation District only provides 5% of the water for Nevada County. So where's this water going? Who are the customers? Because I looked it up and I can't find out where this water is actually going. This is a 1927 idea that you want to put in for 2023. I don't think that's okay. And you guys don't even have very knowledgeable points that you have researched. You just kind of brush over your presentation. And if you've been playing this since 1927, why do you not know what you're doing? David and Rebecca have put concern for the fish. So the fish are really important to me. And with eminent domain, you're not only kicking out the 25 families, you're also kicking out the homeless people that live by the river. And I don't know, are you guys going to provide them with support? Because they always get forgotten. Plus, how is this going to affect indigenous people and indigenous rights? Rebecca says listen to the people. I agree with her. What are the socioeconomic situation of all the people that are going to be negatively impacted? And what is the socioeconomic situation and background of these so-called customers? Who are NID's customers, and where is the water going? Thank you.
I'd like to start by saying I hadn't planned on speaking when I first attended the environmental impact report last night, but after attending the EIR in Grass Valley, I felt compelled. Honestly, I don't know whether it was feeling empowered by my other peers who spoke that night or feeling indignant and contempt for the old man that told us, "Remember, girls, don't bite the hand that feeds you," as he walked out the door. Either way, I have things to say. When Nick Wilcox of the NID spoke to my classmates tonight at the Women's Semester School, he spoke of the great pros of the dam. They would increase water storage, increase habitat, have no negative effects on fish, boost agriculture, and more, while the cons were simply brushed over, like how the dam would be destroying 6 miles of oak forest and destroying homes. He chuckled when we questioned the cons further, and it was clear he wasn't taking our concerns seriously. When a classmate of mine asked why he thought it was okay to use eminent domain over others, he simply laughed and replied, "Well, we've been doing it for centuries." Doing something for centuries may be an excuse, but it is far from a valid one. Destroying habitat and putting endangered species at greater risk is not justifiable, but it's been happening for centuries. And neither is removing families from homes where they've been living for years and years. Speaking of which, when Nick Wilcox spoke to our class, we were told that the residents of Bear River were mostly wealthy people using their houses as summer homes. Based on the speakers from last night, this is false. There are people who have been living there for over 25 years, people who have raised their children and now grandchildren there, and I honestly feel like it's an insult to them to ignore the realities of people living along the river. Being originally from a very project-focused school in Sacramento, I've seen long, drawn-out presentations of project proposals. As students, we are expected to go very in-depth about the effects of our project, such as who will be harmed from our projects and who will benefit from it. Every sophomore must complete gateways, which are 2-hour presentations focused entirely on going in-depth on related questions, while still being pushed by teachers to do more and think more. We are not allowed to just graze over the effects and details of our project, or we know we're about to be grilled by our peers for it. The pros briefly presented to us by Nick Wilcox and later presented at the EIR report seem embellished, while the cons hardly considered and barely taken seriously. If 15 and 16-year-olds can be responsible enough and capable of such thought to go incredibly in-depth on projects as simple as an open mic night or benefit for charity, why is the NID incapable of doing so? Quite frankly, it is difficult to not feel scorn for adults much older than I who cannot present a complicated project as well as my peers. I don't doubt that the NID has considered this project more, but I don't feel like that they've entirely showed that to us. I digress. I have questions for the NID that are not addressed on their website or are just brushed over in their presentations. Who are the people that are really benefiting from this dam? How many people are really going to be displaced from their homes? By this, I include the homeless living near the river, not just the landowners. Does the NID have any plans to help the homeless in camps along the river that they will be displacing by making this dam, or are the homeless going to be ignored as they nearly always are? How are the indigenous people of the area going to be affected? And does the NID plan on helping them in any way if their issues with the dam are ignored as well? How many endangered species are going to be put at greater risk because of the destruction of habitat? And on that note, how does it make sense that destroying 6 miles of forest will increase habitat? How is this dam going to affect fish migration? And is the NID taking into consideration that the native salmon on the river cannot live in a warmer water lake when they need cold rivers to migrate and repopulate? How are animals supposed to migrate across a 6-mile lake? Are there plans to build a new bridge since the current one across the river is going to be flooded if the dam is built? How is this going to affect rivers and fish further downstream? And as the speaker earlier brought up, why is there no meeting being held in Placer County when these are more people being directly affected by it? There are so many unanswered questions when it comes to this project, and I'm pretty sure the NID has left more than any project I've ever seen as a high schooler. You would think that for a dam thought up nearly a century ago, they would have figured a bit more of this out. Thank you.
Thank you. I am a high school senior and I am currently attending the Women's Semester School with the 2 students that y'all just heard from before me. And I realize that some of this might seem a bit redundant since it's already been said by my classmates, but I think it is very important that our classroom is being moved to the community. As residents of Texas, I am no stranger to droughts. We have been in serious drought conditions since 2010. Not tall enough for me. And so I am no stranger to lack of groundwater, dried up wells, and water restrictions. I have many questions, and like I said, they might be redundant, but I am grateful for the opportunity from the NID to voice my concerns. The questions that I'm going to ask, I also asked last night at the meeting in Grass Valley. I have found no reliable source to answer these questions. The NID has not been truly transparent about the negative impacts of this reservoir. When concerns are brought to light, even if the people voicing them are less than half your age, it doesn't give them the go-ahead to shut those concerns down simply because of the people voicing them. Water demand is increasing, and that's no joke to California residents, nor should it be treated like one. Another fact is that is no joke to the residents of California is lack of water. What is the process to decrease water demand? If water demand is decreased, would there be a need for the dam in the first place? What have been the measures to conserve water and how have they been regulated? Who will benefit the most from the dam? What is the socioeconomic status of the people benefited by the dam? It seems as though there is a significant amount of environmental injustice in regards to those who are benefiting from the reservoir, such as the water being used by high-end landscaping and golf courses. As told by Nick Wilcox in his presentation for our science class, the houses being displaced were mostly the summer homes of the financially wealthy, but it is clear that this is not the case. How does the location of the dam impact the communities surrounding it? How is the location even determined? Will there be compensation for the people being removed from their homes? And who is being displaced from their homes because of the dam? How will this dam impact the lives of the indigenous people in this area, and has there been consideration for this? What are the plans for protection from mercury poisoning? How will the people in lower income communities be given compensation for the health effects of consuming mercury? What kind of effort is being made to preserve the already dwindling population of salmon that has already been on the decline since the gold rush, when there was already an extreme amount of mercury runoff that was put into the water system? If the displacement of people's homes and livelihoods that have been established for generations isn't enough of a reason not to build the dam, think about the long-term effects of more mercury buildup in the water and how that will impact the lives of the future generation, my generation, and the generation of my children and y'all's grandchildren. If that's not enough, I don't know what is. As Catherine said, it's not always going to rain, and this dam is depending on past rainfall measures to fill up the reservoir. There is no guarantee that it is going to rain, despite the rain that we've been getting here in this area this week. But if there is a thought that just because it's been raining a ton this week, let me just say that thinking there will be no more drought because it rained at your house today is like saying that hunger doesn't exist anymore because you ate today. 110,000 acre-feet of water is just a ton of water that this area already doesn't have. And creating a wet reservoir isn't going to magically make water appear. Instead of making accommodations for the current water usage, building reservoirs so we can keep our golf courses and lawns a plush green, we should be looking at water conservation and ways of life that are cohesive to adapting to the current water situation. Again, there is no proof that the NID is supplying water to the people or small towns, and based off of this, the environmental and public impact and the supposedly feel-good eminent domain clause of "we've been doing this for years" isn't good enough. Thank you.
So I had a couple questions. I don't know if there's if that would be answered or if I can email them, that would maybe be better. I want to know whether the people who are being displaced, if they're in a low income or otherwise unable to move, because that can be really important. Also, what forests are going to be purchased as mitigation, and another question that my friend had brought up, who are the primary recipients of the water. That can be really important.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of the State Water Resources Control Board, and I apologize I wasn't able to be at the meeting last night. I really hope there's some other agency folks hiding out there, but my comments are just as much for NID as they are for the public, and that's just to let you know that the State Water Resources Control Board is here, is paying attention. We're going to be very involved in the water rights aspects of this project. We're also going to be the ones doing the 401 water quality certification for this project. So we intend to be very involved with all aspects of the CEQA process, and I'm glad to see everybody out here, and I hope to see just as many people when we're doing our public parts of our processes in this project. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm a resident of this area and just wanted to speak on behalf of Bear River. We've lived here for quite a while. We know we have a lot of neighbors that are second and third generation that have lived in the same home or certainly in the same neighborhood that enjoy the beauty and the aspects of the Bear River. And I kind of wanted to talk on behalf of wanting it to stay and a rebuttal against NID's somewhat less than full upfront approach on them wanting to put in this Centennial Dam and all. And I understand at this point that it's something in the paperwork process, but it's not a done deal or anything, and it'd be nice if enough people would get together and sign ballots to keep it as in the form that it's in. That's what draws a lot of people to and keeps them here in this part of Nevada County. And I think a dam might be better served at some other location rather than here.